A team! Sean! We're going to war, soldier!
Well, you are, not me.
It's time to get boots on the ground!
It's Jeffrey's War. Are you a pathetic gooner looking for love?
Aren't we all? Well, we've got plenty of ladies.
And they're just waiting for liberation.
All you have to do is beat our challenge.
It's time to roll the die on your lives!
Let's see what these boys won. It's crippling PTSD and higher gas prices!
A brand new luxury casket!
You answered C, and you are correct. Do you have what it takes to play with Jeff Frey?
We want you to play Jeffrey's War. Your local TV listings.
A team! Sean!
I'm not with you. I'm with Israel.
I made Gestapo tactic.
Yeah. Feel it, baby. Hope y'all are wearing your Friday, fun day, dress day clothes at the office, ladies and gentlemen. You don't have to wear the suit and tie today. It is Friday. Let me button this up a little bit, Sam. I'm showing a little bit too much skin. We want people to pay attention.
Yeah.
Excited over here. That's what
we don't
happens.
Want you showing so much skin.
Yeah, I know. The cast and crew of the TruthWire and the Convo couch, whatever, the old school Convo couch, TruthWire. Looking too hot today, but it is a cold day here in South Florida. It is raining outside, fam.
I look like I have oil on my face because I have mosquito repellent on because the mosquitoes are everywhere. And I'm trying not to get eaten alive because they love me. They always bite me. It's
Your
bad.
skin complex is grasoso, which for all of you,
No,
though,
it's
out there,
not.
ladies and gentlemen, that's greasy and
It is not greasy at all. You just don't
Grasoso.
understand the wet,
Grasoso.
natural look. God, you're such a boomer.
I know you love this shirt. This is Fred Edwards' favorite shirt. We want to welcome you all and thank you all to coming to the TruthWire today. It is Truth Time. It is Friday. Sorry about missing the Monday show. We made it up on Wednesday. We had an amazing guest, Dr. Satira Sadiki. She was amazing. Some great questions, too, as well, I thought, from our crew. You know, I mean, when she said it's not a monolith, you know, I mean, I think it's time we start explaining that because I think a lot of people think that, you know, and especially from when it comes from us, we don't push. We're not ideologues. So we don't push that everybody in Cuba, for instance, is a Che Guevara wearing revolutionary, oh, let's go, socialism, communism, yay, yay person. It's not like that. It's not a monolith. There are people with different opinions, and there are people on the side that want the Americans to come in. I wouldn't say that they want the bombing in Iran, but there are people who are, you know, sympathetic to the Shah. They want a son there. I wouldn't say it would be 81% of those people feel that way, the way Patrick Bet-David did, just by judging what's going on in the street. My source said it's like a 3-to-1, you know, comparison. Like for every 3 people that support the government, there's one person who might support the old government, want to see the Shah's son come in and take over. But once again, it's hard to get an accurate count. But I believe that if we explain that it's not a monolith, fam, and we can at least, you know, talk about that on some level, because there's a lot of people still claiming to this day that the people of Venezuela, fam, are happy that the United States came in and got Nicolás Maduro. What we have seen when we've gone to Latin America is that there's a big push for national sovereignty. In other words, those countries, whether the people be conservative, liberal, left, right, they want to choose what's best for their country. They want to choose what to do with their resources. And more importantly, they want to pick their leaders. And when we highlight the election system being so much more transparent and fair than the Americans' elections, we get a lot of pushback, but we're not here to make anybody comfortable. We're not going to pick a side or play a side. We're here to tell the truth, and that's why we're called the TruthWire, fam.
Yeah, I mean, no country is a monolith whatsoever. So whether it's Iran or Russia or China, you know, in Russia you have different beliefs. A lot of the older people miss the Soviet Union. A lot of the young people really look to Europe and the possibilities in other places because of the low wages they have. And the low wages issue is an issue that plagues pretty much every other country in the world, not just Russia. And then you have people who want to bring back the monarchist czar, and who think, that's great. Mostly, of course, people with a lot of money, a lot of the oligarchs. And then you have, of course, the oligarch Zionist faction in Russia. So it's obviously not a monolith. And you can even see the differences between the Russian Foreign Ministry and the Kremlin in their approach to the United States, for example. So I am going to talk about that. Our guest is coming on in a few minutes. So, but I definitely want to talk about the UNSC and the mechanisms behind all that. It's not the first time we've seen that happen with Russia and China. And this is what I've been trying to tell people. It's like, to me, it's not surprising, because the way they're operating in the world is an economic pragmatist approach. And I'm not attached to seeing them as some sort of like ideological beacons, because that was a long time ago, especially for Russia. For China, I think a lot of people have idealized China as the ultimate communist reality, when in actuality it's quite engaging in a very global capitalist market, and it has done a good job for its people. But that's not to say there aren't any criticisms, which we've pointed out several times. It's not the same as the United States, but it is different. But I do think there needs to be an actual opposition to the Abstain regime, and the only people right now opposing the Abstain regime in the capacity that it should be opposed is Iran and the resistance. And they're the ones doing it actually on behalf of the entire world, essentially. I mean, it really is something to witness.
Yeah. Listen, I don't think Keith is going to be here till 1:15, so we got 20 minutes. Why don't we get into the first subject? Russia and China abstain from the UNSC vote. I mean, wow. And there's so much to say about Russia right now. Man, fam, I am a little disappointed. I'm not gonna lie, right? I'm a little disappointed in RT. I'm a little disappointed in the Russian government. I'm a little disappointed altogether. And what they're trying to portray and what they're trying to do. I feel like, it's anti-imperialism, right? They're not anti-imperialist across the board. They're only anti-imperialist when it comes to their needs and wants, I feel. And that's both the network and the country right now.
I don't think they're anti-imperialist at all.
At all, what I'm saying? Well,
no,
exactly. You're right. Well, when it comes, they seem anti-imperialist when it comes to their needs. Then they're going to stand up on international law, yada yada yada. But the network itself and the country. Well, the country hasn't said, but the network itself. The way when I was in Minnesota, see them talk about the Somali community when Somalia had been bombed 130 times that prior year. Showed a lot of true colors. You know what I'm saying? And they also have their right-wing kind of Christian, their orthodoxy, conservative ways of doing things. That even though, when you hear situations like, well, there's gay people in Russia, there's gay clubs in Moscow, the government just doesn't push it like the American government does, but they do have a conservative Christian slang and belief to them. Those government, the Russian government and the people itself, I believe a lot of them will align with the right in America because of their Christian beliefs. But then that goes over the top sometimes and it can blur your vision. I don't give a shit what you tell me. The same people who got in the street for Minnesota were the same people who got in the streets for Gaza, and they got it right. You know what I'm saying? They might have not gotten the situation right when it comes to what's a good situation? COVID. Great. Thank you so much. And also too, I think a lot of those people that were in Minnesota, fam, they wouldn't object to a national police force that was there to uphold the, let's say a collection of semi-automatic weapons or whatever, or to uphold vaccine mandates. They would have been fine with that. So there's inconsistencies there with that crowd, but they were right. And ICE is a national police force, right, that's a bunch of Gestapos running around that were directed to violate the Constitution. So I don't give a shit if you're right, left, whatever. You should be opposed to that, right? No, you know what I'm saying? They played the same game. Just because they feel that they're anti-woke doesn't make them right. Sorry. Doesn't make it doesn't hold water. Just because the people who are woke, who got in the streets for Gaza, who got in the streets to be anti-ICE in Minnesota, doesn't mean that they're wrong. They're actually right. Now, would I like to see them get in the streets a little bit more for what happened in the Donbass? Of course, right? But you know, you can only wish. But we have to be consistent with our reporting, and unfortunately, they are not. Why don't we get into the subject before Keith gets here? He'll be here like less than 20 minutes. But let's get into this, fam. Jayme, we're going to run into the first subject and let fam roll with it because this is disappointing.
Fam.
This is disappointing. Yes.
Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and start with this article, Jayme, to just present what happened. So the UN Security Council did adopt a resolution condemning Iran's attacks in the Gulf. The UN Security Council draft resolution demanding Iran and its attacks on Gulf nations was co-sponsored by 135 countries. So they adopted this draft resolution condemning Iran's attacks on Gulf countries and Jordan, demanding that Tehran immediately halt hostilities. 13 of the 15 members of the UNSC voted on Wednesday in favor of the resolution sponsored by the Gulf Cooperation Council, the GCC, and co-sponsored by an extraordinary 135 other UN member states. No countries voted against the draft. Okay, it was overwhelming. It was 13 votes on the council in favor, 2 abstentions, China and Russia. And they did not use their veto power to block this resolution, probably because it got a lot of support, not only in the Security Council, but with other member states. We believe it's the largest number of countries to co-sponsor a Security Council draft resolution. The resolution condemns Iran's attacks, demands an immediate halt to hostilities, and deplores Tehran's targeting of infrastructure, such as ports and energy facilities in the Gulf region. So the issue I have with this whole thing, and you know what, Jayme, if you can play, if you scroll down, there's a video. If you can play this, because this is the representative from Iran saying this is an absolute injustice to that. Yeah, well, I don't think it was this one, but it's okay. You can play this one.
كما ذكرت لكم في الاجتماع الماضي كانت توجيهات سيدي صاحب السمو واضحة لنا كمسؤولين بالعمل الدؤوب.
You gotta stop. Pause it 1 second, Jayme. Lower it. Start it from the beginning.
الكرام كما ذكرت لكم في الاجتماع الماضي كانت توجيهات سيدي صاحب السمو واضحة لنا كمسؤولين.
Are you reading it, fam?
No, because I have to start from the beginning. I'm waiting for him to start it from the beginning.
Pause it and start it from the beginning. You ready? You ready?
You talking to me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Go, Jayme.
Colleagues, as I mentioned in our previous meeting, the directives of His Highness the Emir were clear that we must as officials work diligently to ensure that the normal course of life for citizens and residents remains uninterrupted, that we continue to act in the integrated manner in the spirit. At this stage, it is important to remember the significance of the moment that Qatar is going through. So this is Qatar. That Qatar has faced difficult challenges in recent years, and each time, gone by the grace of Allah, we have emerged stronger. So this, you can pause it here. I just want to explain what we're watching. This is the Gulf pretty much talking about how they've been affected by this whole thing. If you go back to the link, the UN Security Council one, Al Jazeera, and you scroll down, this is the Iranian ambassador condemning the UN Security Council vote. And the reason I want people to hear that is because if you recall, when Israel was demolishing Gaza, we couldn't get a vote this high during the entire genocide. But they were able to get a vote this high to target Iran for targeting the Gulf, which the Gulf was participating in protecting Israel and the United States against Iran, who was bombed first. So Iran was bombed first. They killed a school of children, or they killed children at a school. They bombed an entire school. They bombed hospitals, the Gandhi Hospital, among others. They bombed police stations. Yet we're focused on Iran. And these people have the audacity to pretend that the entire genocide didn't happen. And remember, who abstained also from the votes on condemning the genocide. That was Russia and China. This is why many of us are pissed off. A lot of people are justifying this, and it is absolutely unjustifiable when you look at the context of the genocide. Okay, let's play what he said.
I must express our profound regret over the Council's action today. This is a deeply regrettable day.
This is a deeply regrettable. Yeah, he's saying it. You just need to.
Today's adoption is a serious setback to the Council's credibility and leaves a. I must express our profound regret over the Council's action today. This is a deeply regrettable day for the Security Council and for the international community. Today's adoption is a serious setback to the Council's credibility and leaves a lasting stain on its record. Today's action represents a blatant misuse of the Security Council mandate in pursuit of the political agendas of the certain members. The very state responsible for the brutal war of aggression against my country, let me make it clear. This resolution is a manifest injustice against my country, the main victim of a clear act of aggression. Make no mistake. Today it is Iran. Tomorrow it could be any other sovereign state.
Exactly. Fam, and I want to say this before I give it off to you. It's really telling how the reality is Russia and China have economic and transportation and just overall commercial relationships with the Gulf. Mm-hmm. So they may not blatantly say it that it's because of that, but it is because of that. Yeah. It is because of that. Their business interests are completely with the Gulf. Russia constantly has events where Saudi Arabia, Qatar, UAE are in attendance. I know this because I've been to some of these events, and people are like, why are they always so close to the Gulf? Remember, Vladimir Putin wanted Bashar al-Assad to pivot towards the Gulf, and Bashar al-Assad refused. And then, months later, he was regime changed and he was ousted. That's the reality, the economic world. Now, what really irritates me is what he said is true, that this just completely backpedals any sort of advancement there might have been. But the reality is the UN is useless, as many of you are saying in the chat. The UN has been completely useless and meaningless since the genocide for, I think, the entire world. But for these people and for international law, it means something to them. So we can't just say the UN is useless when China and Russia do something that is critical, is worthy of criticism. We can't just say that to defend them. Oh, it's useless anyway. Do you say that it's useless anyway when they do the right thing?
Yeah.
I just hate the double standards. For example, with Venezuela. Venezuela is doing a lot of things that a lot of people are outright criticizing, yet that's not selling out. But when Russia or China do something that does appear that makes them defend to a degree Israel's part and Washington's partners in the Gulf, people try to justify it and say, well, they just don't get involved. Well, the UN doesn't matter anyway. I'm sorry, but those don't hold up anymore. You don't get to say that. Otherwise, everything else you've been saying about pretty much every other country that's had to compromise with the United States also doesn't hold up.
Yeah. Well, I would like to say that I'm glad that this stuff is happening, right? People have to realize what's going on. The ideologues that sit there behind China and Russia and continue making the excuse for them can't make any excuses anymore. There are no excuses. We talk about wanting to make that pivot from Bashar al-Assad to the Gulf states, and he said, no, I'm not going to go align myself with these monarchs who they're the ones who are enslaving, people of Islam, Muslims and whatnot. They're the ones who are taking money from the West and whatnot and setting up bases that are used to attack and kill people like us. So, I'm glad that this is coming out. People have to understand what's going on. Fam, I think this is something that you hit on not too long ago. There's a lot of people who still want to make the case and the cause that everything that's happening right now is happening at the best of Israel. It's not. It's happening at the best of the technocrats. And at the end of the day, the Russians, the Chinese are all plugged into that system. They want more surveillance on their citizens. They want more of what's coming on in the future as far as track and trace systems, right? They're all a part of it right now. And it seems like, at the end of the day, Russia and China are not going to stand up for what America is going to do. They're just going to adjust and continue to do what they are doing. It is a shame, too, as well, to see that India has now, India, Modi went 2 days, 3 days before the attack of Iran, went to India. He, his nose was browner than normal from kissing Netanyahu's ass so much, making all these deals and pacts. Meanwhile, Iran is a partner of BRICS. I mean, it's at the end of the day, it is sad to see everybody bow down to the superpowers and go along. I mean, I don't know, fam, if this is just a situation where they're saying, well, what do you want us to do? The Americans and the Israelis are crazy. They'll blow the whole place up if we don't do anything. I don't know at this point, but I think people have to see this for what it is. Because if they're going to turn their back on Iran, and Iran is the last beacon of hope, right? If Iran falls, it's over. There is zero resistance there. I agree with you 1,000% on that, fam, right? And a lot of other people do. You've said it first, and you hear a lot of other people who, they're friendly with the mainstream media, and they're friendly with the YouTube people, and they're friendly with those who control, the narrative management. They're okay with, they get to say what you've been saying for months right now, if not years, that if Iran falls, it's over. It's like The Sopranos, over. Pick a new fucking show. Well, I don't know there's nothing else to pick if Iran falls. So don't think a lot of us are rooting for Iran just because we want to see Americans get hurt or Americans fall or be punished, whatnot. We want to see some form of resistance of somebody standing up to the bullies of the world. The Abstain, once again, god damn, fam. How long ago we've been talking about the Abstain stuff? For fucking years, right? And we said years ago, you asked me on a film, well, Pasta, why is it important to recognize Abstain and these people here? I'm like, because these are the same people who are making all the decisions of what's going on. Your government isn't doing shit. When you see Chuck Schumer or Dick Blumenthal saying stuff, they have no power. They're just going along to get along. And no, the Democrats are not opposing the Republicans. This is WWE wrestling. So at least right now, fam, it's out in the open. China and Russia ain't gonna do shit. It's up to Iran. Luckily, they've been preparing themselves for this for years.
Agreed on all points. And I think we should just put up with Greg Mokibar posted. Jayme, if you can pull that one up. We'll just go through this quickly. So Craig, this is another good Craig.
Yeah.
He said, for the second time in 4 months, see Resolution 2803, the UN Security Council has today bowed to the U.S. empire and its vassals and ignored international law on its behalf. If you remember, he left the UNSC. And neither Russia nor China have acted to stop it through their veto rights. In the middle of an unlawful and bloody U.S.-Israel axis aggression on Iran, the Council is entirely silent on the aggression and on Iran's charter-based right to defend itself. Exactly. If you can scroll up, instead of condemning the aggressors, it condemns only Iran for the attacks on the territory of the countries in the region hosting U.S. military bases, some of which have been directly complicit in the aggression, proving once again how oil and money are valued more than sovereignty. Exactly. That's why they did it. Do it. Human lives or international law, the resolution gained a record number of state co-sponsors. The council that has allowed genocide and serial aggression to continue for more than 2 years in the region without action has decided that oil prices are a step too far. And this is exactly how the world functions. You can kill as many children and innocents as you want in Gaza, but the moment the oil is at stake, that's when we're going to unite and do something. And who is, of course, endangering that? That's Iran in its ability to defend itself. As it should, as it has every right, not only moral right, but lawful right to do so. And that is why people like us are angry, because it's like, do you not see how we're being manipulated? And the way they write it is, oh, well, they abstained from the resolution because they didn't support that the blame only lie in Iran. No, they abstained from the resolution because they didn't want to hurt the Gulf anymore. They wanted the Gulf to be protected. That's why they abstained. Otherwise, they would have used their veto power to say, this isn't fair. You're not talking about Israel or the United States who started this. Israel and the United States, who also, by the way, threatened both Russia and China in the long run. Because after Iran, believe me, Russia will be balkanized. They will be balkanized. That's the goal. And then after that, of course, then China and the United States have free reign to go about their competition for AI global domination, because that's exactly where we're headed. And if you don't see that by now, you're not looking at things from a clear perspective.
Yep. Listen, there's a lot to this too right now. I think that if in fact we have a situation where the United States closes up and closes shop, they close all their bases, they go, a nuke is not used, Iran pushes back Israel, right? And Israel just says, okay, we have to stop right now. And maybe they get out of Lebanon, maybe they get out of Syria. I don't know what the case may be. Let's just say, for instance, Iran, is able to obtain a serious victory. What do they do with the Gulf states? Because if I'm Iran, I'm not sitting still in the Gulf states. I'm like, there's no more monarchies in the Gulf states. The people are going to have control. And just like the United States supports different uprisings, Iran can support uprisings in those countries, right? Because the wealth in those countries, they can have a democracy there. They don't need a monarchy, right? So I'm looking at Qatar. I'm looking at Bahrain. I'm looking at Saudi Arabia. I'm looking at the UAE, right? Did I say it right?
Yeah. UAE.
Okay. I'm looking at those countries. I'm going to say, what's to happen to those countries? Because they saw that Iran can hit them and hit them hard. Their people got to be going, shit, if the monarch can't protect us, maybe we should do something ourselves. I'm looking for one of those countries to have some type of revolution in which they take control, the people. I don't know. Something we need to look at. I wouldn't let if I was Iran, I wouldn't let the Gulf states operate under the systems anymore. I'd bomb the shit out of them until they fucking have an uprising. They've had them before, Bahrain, Qatar. I don't know. That's just my thoughts.
So we'll continue that in a bit, but let's just go ahead and bring our guests, because there's a lot more.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. Our guest. You might have, if you've been watching this show for a while, we've had him on several times. We have a good place in our heart for a guy like this because he feeds people. You know what I'm saying? And me and fam, we love to eat. So anybody who's out there feeding hungry people out there, he's good by us. Ladies and gentlemen, from Food Not Bombs, the founder himself, Keith McHenry, is with us.
Well, thanks so much for having me. That's great.
I know you always say thank you when you're like, man, thank you so much. It's like our pleasure, Keith. We love you over here.
That's good. Not a lot of people do. No, people do, but fortunately, governments don't. So that's good.
Where you at, by the way?
I'm in Santa Cruz, California.
We'll get to Santa Cruz at the end, fam, because I was talking to Keith, and there's a lot of stuff he's going to fill us on in. And welcome the audience. If you haven't seen Keith McHenry here before, you're in for a treat. He is the founder of Food Not Bombs. But Keith is a guy that, he drove me to the Defeat the Mandates in LA together. He was also very weary of the vaccine and what that was bringing to the table. We could talk about that a little bit later, but we got to talk about a few things because, to be honest with you, Keith, you're on the show today because you pissed me off a little bit. And not really that you pissed me off with your opinions, is that I saw you sharing some Charlie Kirk stuff recently, and I got mad because I've been an asshole to people for not letting this story die. And it's not that I hated Charlie. I just didn't feel like he should be lionized, right? And there are some things about it where people were like, oh, he was turning and whatnot. Yeah, but a week before he was killed at an event, he still said the big problem is Islam and woke communism. And at the end of the day, even if you are standing up against Israel's geopolitical posturing, you're still you're manufacturing consent. Well, yeah, I'm against what Israel's doing, but if Islam is the number one problem, you'll justify the bombing. He's not here to defend himself, so we can't talk about that, but that's that's something, a reason why I was never like, okay, let's not act like this guy was the next coming of Jesus. However, you've been sharing some stuff about his murder and whatnot. So my question to you is, Keith, and we're going to make you very big on the screen when we ask this question, so make sure you answer it right. Right?
Okay.
What fascinates you so much about this Charlie Kirk story? And a lot of the stuff we see people like Candace Owen still putting out there. We see other people grifting off all this shit. And I think it's a grift because there's a, oh my God, who done it? I'd rather go look in to see who killed Fred Hampton, right? And Malcolm X, and talk a little bit more about that. Or talk about Mumia, who's still sitting in a fucking prison right now, and talk about that. But that's me. What fascinates Keith McHenry so much about the Charlie Kirk situation?
Well, it's my, I think in part it's my experience as a target of the FBI, CIA, Interpol, and so on. So one of the things so first of all, I guess there was a lot of speculation that there's a connection between Fort Huachuca and whatever, so the whole thing is a very interesting psyops. That's what I think it is. And that it might have failed in ways, and potentially in support of the war against Iran. They're supposed to be getting all the Christian Zionists together to go off to fight, but then they ended up, and they're supposed to trash the left because it's supposed to be a guy dating a furry that killed them, and the whole thing was completely suspicious. And it was very much a repeat of things like the Oklahoma bombing, where as soon as they have to make all these rules and laws and blah, blah, blah. And then you pave over the site, or like 9/11, you pave over the site, move all the metal to China, whatever. It had a lot of similarities to all those things. But I happened to, when I was fleeing the mafia in Boston, and went underground for a while, and I skirted the U.S.-Mexican border. And my wife at the time, Andrea, and we were up camping in Coronado National Monument, and we realized we ran out of gas. And that Coronado National Monument is a mountain that's between Mexico and Fort Huachuca. So when we got to the bottom of the, when we saw, like on the Rand McNally Atlas, that there was a town called Buena Vista. So we were trying to get there before we ran out of gas, so we didn't, have to walk miles and miles in the mountains to a town to get gas. We pull into a gas station, and it was back when you could fill up. And so first, before paying, so I fill up and go, wow, this is great, a whole tank of gas for like $5. And then I asked when I went to pay, they asked for my ID. I showed them my Massachusetts driver's license. They go, no, your military ID. Turned out I was on Fort Huachuca. I was invading Fort Huachuca from the enemy's side, from Mexico. So I drove all around there, me and Andrea, we're looking at the weird new airplanes and jets and strange things on their tarmac, all that. So then we moved to San Francisco, and I get a job at Bob's Typing. And this woman comes in, a very attractive blonde, comes in, and she wants to have her resume changed. She wants me to take out her Peace Corps entry. And she wants me to write a cover letter to KCBS Radio looking for a job there. So, on a CV, it's like from what date to present, what was her employment under present. She was the head of she was the director of intelligence for the Pacific Rim. So why am I typing a resume for her and sending in a letter to the head of KCBS Radio looking for a job? She gets that job, and then she interviews me frequently throughout the, when I get arrested for food not bombs and stuff like that. But then also at the same time, there's this other weird story happening in the local media, which is this guy named Michael Aquino is snatching kids out of the daycare center at Presidio Army Base, doing satanic rituals with them and all that. Well, that becomes, that was like a big news at the time. And it turns out that the co-author of a book on psychological warfare with Michael Aquino is on the board of directors of Turning Point USA. So I thought that was an interesting connection there. And also the woman who was Michael Aquino's supervisor, who is the woman I typed the resume for, she got her undergraduate degree in information extraction at Fort Huachuca, and she got her postgraduate degree in information extraction at Fort Ord before Fort Ord shut down. So these kind of, and I'm also from Central. I went to high school near where the shooting was, so that was somewhat of an interest. And also, you know, like a lot of young kids, I did the NRA thing, you know, and you had to go shoot deer and crap like that when you're a kid. Although I didn't do it because I thought that was sad to kill deer. But all these right wingers who shoot guns were doing video analysis on YouTube of how the gun that Charlie Kirk was supposed to be killed with would have blown his head off. I thought, what an interesting thing. You have the actual MAGA people that they're supposed to be doing this whole psych ops for are now turning on them because anybody that is like a Yahoo that shoots these guns knows that if you can kill an elk or a moose with the gun and Charlie's head's still there. Well, that's crazy. So they've got their whole psych ops was the most bizarre psych ops possible. And so I found it really fascinating that aspect of it, how they were doing it. Now, Charlie Kirk, he was definitely probably a psych ops all along. It does look like maybe Erica Kirk was a honey trap, that he fell into that possibly. And I've had my problems with honey traps, so there was another potential connection there. Because the last honey trap I had, I lost my health and my house and everything I owned. So anyway, so there was, I had some connection to that. I certainly did not endorse anything. I've lived in Islamic countries. There's no way I would be supporting anybody that says something negative about Islam. And, beautiful. I'm not religious. I don't, I'm not believing in Islam or any of that, but they're very nice people that I've met and beautiful architecture. And they have most of the people I hung out with, like in any place, even in the U.S., have a heart. They're not, this way.
So really quickly though, I mean, we talked briefly, and you had said, and we had said, and I thought this too as well. I thought this was going to be their George Floyd moment, meaning the right, where I saw a lot of people upset. They were obviously trying to push this rhetoric about who he was dating, the guy. And by the way, today they were in Utah. I think that was the start of his trial. So it's kind of interesting that we're talking today because in Utah, they're trying to make decisions because Utah has a history of saying, well, anything we do in our courtroom, it's public. We have TVs there and stuff. Now the defense, I think the kid's name is it Michael Robinson or whatever Robinson the kid's name is, who, his defense team is trying to say they want to get the cameras out of the courtroom. They're trying to do a few things, but it's going to be interesting. He's obviously pleading not guilty. But this did seem like it was a chance to have a George Floyd moment for the right. And I don't know if this was something that was planned, right? That they were going to do, or this is something like disaster capitalism. Something happens and there's a group of people that take advantage of it. Can you talk more to what we were talking about yesterday as far as what was supposed to happen and why it didn't happen, and maybe your thoughts on why it fizzled out?
Yeah, because if you notice, immediately it was supposed to be a left winger, and you had all the media going, "Oh, the left is horrible." And if you recall, right before that, you were having, in fact, Fox TV had a thing where they interviewed a phony Antifa guy who got his start cooking with food not bombs and blah blah blah, and so there was this whole hysteria about Antifa. Then they had the kids that were busted in outside in Fort Worth, who were also cooked with food not bombs, and they were smearing them. So I thought, okay, the shooting of Charlie Kirk is to galvanize the right to be able to start really demonizing the left, because they got a war planned and they got to suppress the left to make sure that there's no even an inkling of resistance to that war. And then it turned out it seemed to backfire, because then it became Israel first or America first. And the whole thing with the MAGA guys pissed off that how can a rifle like that not take Charlie's head off, and so on. And then Netanyahu coming out instantly saying that he didn't kill Charlie Kirk. I mean, what was that? That was crazy. If you didn't kill Charlie Kirk, why you do, the first message is I didn't kill Charlie Kirk, and then another one after that. So there seemed like a lot of failed manipulation, that there was supposed to be this galvanizing the Christian right to go to war against Islam. And that's why Charlie was like all against Islam, and if somehow it's a fake religion or whatever, the kinds of stuff, and the homophobia and all the different things that have been in his apparently, although I have to say I've never really paid any attention to him till that video was really shocking, blood squirting out into the air. And then notice we never see that video again. That was only on the day of the murder. That somehow got concealed. So it just seemed like it was I've had my own experiences with the FBI fucking up. So for instance, I was having all my money taken. My email went to $1,000 a month. I couldn't do anything when I lived in the Taos Peace House and Info Shop in Taos, New Mexico. And I was supposed to go to both the Democratic National Convention in Denver and then head up to Minneapolis. And I couldn't get to Minneapolis because the FBI operation in New Mexico made it so I had no money, no way to get to Minneapolis. But the Minneapolis program, they had a honey trap, a woman that looked exactly like my ex-wife, which did me in, who was a honey trap and who was an asset. So when I got there, I probably would have, if I ever got there, I would have said, oh God, I'm not going to live through that again. But it's just like what they did with Leonard Peltier. And every person until I came around, and I don't look like Anna Mae Aquash, but the woman I had to kick out when Leonard asked me to get rid of Kathleen looked just like Anna Mae Aquash. The person before her looked like Anna Mae Aquash. So they play these like FBI, I'm sure, like with that's how they do it with the honey traps. So they get in each other's way, and then they got rid of Nora when they realized I was never going to make it. But in the end, Nora testified against the Food Not Bombs kids in the RNC Welcoming Committee RNC 8 case. So it's not like they're always that swift. Apparently, they're not that swift in the case of the Iran war. They messed that up. But so anyway, I found that interesting, that whole thing about Charlie Kirk and the surveillance aspect of it, and potential honey trap of was he, because here he is, a guy that I guess he went to high school. Charlie Kirk went to high school, I suppose, and wasn't really all that intellectual, but he was propped up as pretending to be intellectual as some probably Zionist-funded operation. It just seemed really interesting to me.
I want to show really quickly, guys, ladies and gentlemen, Keith McHenry's Facebook, right? So this is Keith McHenry's Facebook real quick. You can see the picture of him being escorted right here by a cop, you know what I'm saying? And just the name alone, right? There's Keith from a long time ago too as well, with the Food
That's
Not
in
Bombs.
Paris. Yeah, that's in Paris during the World Economic Forum.
Yeah. But you can obviously see, ladies and gentlemen, like how Keith would be a target, what he started, Food Not Bombs, how they would want to shut a person like him down, how they want to make sure that a guy wouldn't succeed, how they wouldn't want people to see why Food Not Bombs is so necessary, right? Why all these people starving at the behest of the United States military and government, linked with their friends in Europe, linked with Israel and whatnot. So you can understand, ladies and gentlemen, how powers that would be, strong powers, would say, let's make sure we make sure this guy, Keith McHenry, who's a lovable sweetheart, right? Make sure he doesn't succeed. Let's bastardize him in any way we can. So I can see the connection. So the final question about this, because I want to bury this story right now, because I know Fee's going to get frustrated with me if I keep talking about it.
Yeah, I'm already annoyed. So,
okay. But what are your final thoughts? And make it quick, Keith, so we can get on to the good stuff, because I encourage everybody to go follow Keith McHenry's Twitter page, right? If you follow Keith McHenry's Twitter page, you're going to see everything that's going on in Iran right now. He reposts everything. So I went through his timeline yesterday. I was like, wow, I can make a show with all this stuff. But what are your final thoughts on happened? Is Charlie dead? Is he alive? Is he hanging out in Saudi Arabia or Israel? Is this just a thing that was failed? What are your final thoughts on it moving forward?
Yeah, I just think what their goal was failed, and they're trying to make him a martyr, and it ended up backfiring. And I think that's funny that Candace Owens and and those people like, and just regular MAGA people on gun shows, like completely debunked the entire thing and screwed them up. So that's who cares? I don't care if he's alive or dead, or I mean, it seems like Turning Point USA is basically vanishing, as to be expected, and they'll figure out some other psychops to work later.
All right. They're moving on.
Yeah.
They're moving on, and so are we. Fam, come on back in when you get a chance. You're not just an activist that feeds hungry people. You're also very knowledgeable of what's going on in Iran, right? What's your overall assessment of Trump starting this bombing campaign?
Well, I think
there are so many theories out there right now, but go right ahead.
Yeah, well, I think I think the first thing is that the people surrounding him, are racist, and so there's an assumption that these, people of color in Iran that are backwards and, all that will be an easy pushover, and that they really did think they could pull off the, 1953 coup again and all that, and they basically they believe their own lies, which has gotten them into massive trouble. And I think the U.S. is going to have to figure out a way to get out of this, and Israel is going to have to get out of it. And it's very crazy the amount of damage on both sides. But they didn't divide the Iranian people. And I lived with the Iranian leftists when the uprising was happening. And so I have a lot of friends that were brutally attacked and tortured, both by the Shah and then by the Islamic Republic. And so it's not like you have to be, oh, yeah, I want to live in an Islamic Republic. But I'm also not against living in an Islamic Republic. If that happened to be where I was living and that was what was going on, I would organize around trying to change it like I do in the U.S., right? I try to do something. But the reality is that who in Iran or anywhere wants a U.S. puppet government to run their country? Why would Russia like a Trump appointee to be the head of Russia and run that country? We don't like to have Trump run our country. We don't like Peter Thiel and the tech bros running our country. We don't like them. So why do we think other countries want to export our horror show here and run their country? And I do think, though, that the strategy seems like the military strategy of Iran is what so far seems pretty sound, and it does look like it's very complicated trying to find sift through all the AI generated bombing things. And I try to only connect with people I really know that are from that area or have reliable, people. But boy, is it difficult. So, for instance, there was news that Ben Gurion Airport was struck, and that was just in more mainstream, English language foreign media. And then somebody posts an AI generated thing, but it looked like what the people were describing. Then when you see real video of it, it's actually like bombs on the tarmac and out in the middle of, warehouses and stuff like that. It wasn't like what the AI generated thing was. So there was a bombing of Ben Gurion, but what was being put out was fake, like that apparently struck the Abraham Lincoln. Yeah. Now there's amazing videos of it flaming and burning and blah, blah, blah. That's all AI generated. But there's probably, real damage in some way, because now the Abraham Lincoln's leaving the theater and now the Gerald Ford's leaving the theater. So I think in the end, I'm working on an essay today about that in a strange way, a victory for Iran is a victory for the world, because it could, my family, and how I started out, besides that basic premise, is that when the first McHenry to come to the Americas was Dr. James McHenry, or he became Dr. James McHenry, and he got he was studying under Benjamin Rush, and Benjamin Rush was in the Sons of Liberty and convinced him to set up a field hospital in Cambridge, Massachusetts, for the Battle of Bunker Hill. He was 21 years old when he did that. I was 21 years old when I started food not bombs about a 10-minute walk from where that field hospital was. So I'm like the bookend in a certain sense. I'm at the end of the empire, and Dr. James McHenry was at the beginning. He signed the Constitution. He was, George Washington's best friend, that kind of stuff. But then the point being of the essay is the U.S., and even before it became a country, was genocidal. And it's been that way the whole 250 years of the U.S. and then the 200 years before that. That's our background. So if Iran defeats the United States, could this be the end of a 250-year reign of terror by the U.S. on the whole rest of the world? And of course, as a person that started Food Not Bombs, I hope it is. And I don't want to see my friends. I've been trying to connect with friends in Tel Aviv and Haifa. I was just corresponding with Haifa Food Not Bombs like 2 days before Hezbollah started bombing the port. I can't get a hold of any. My Gaza people, there's a Food Not Bombs in Gaza. It's not easy to communicate with them. And the Jerusalem Food Not Bombs, I haven't seen them since they were being roughed up by the police for protesting the genocide. So, there's, and then we just sent $400 to Beirut to try to help Beirut Food Not Bombs deal with refugees that are flooding in from, from southern Lebanon. So, it's amazing. I just talked to my friend who was in prison. He got life in prison, basically for being my friend, for being he was my main right-hand man at Food Not Bombs Free School in Taos. And anyway, he's only watches mainstream media, and he's like, oh, wow, the U.S. just won the war against Iran. It's all exciting. Woo-hoo. And obviously, that is not the case.
It is awesome, fam, and I hope you got some questions for Keith. But him saying this, and it's kind of funny because people are now playing a clip of Nick Fuentes saying, in a way, if Iran wins, the world wins, right? Like, and
that's weird.
I don't agree with Nick Fuentes on a lot of things, but you said a very similar thing there, right? Like, if in a weird way, if Iran beats the United States, they beat down the bully, it's a win for humanity. No, fam, your thoughts on that? I want to hear fam what she's got to say about that.
Yeah, I'd like to say something. Pasta. So yeah, I mean, I have questions for you, Keith. I mean, I think I want to know what you think about Iran's resistance, because you advocate food not bombs, but there comes a time, I think, in the world where the only thing you can do in a way is resist is literally what Iran has done. I mean, we haven't really seen this from Russia or China. We haven't seen this from the major powers, but Iran was bombed first, right? They were struck first by Washington and Israel. And during the previous 12-day war, they were very restrained to the point where people said, what are you doing? Like, you need to be a little bit more aggressive. And the ideology of Shia Islam is they will not hurt civilians. They will not target civilians. However, we know that the ideology of the United States and Israel is to target as many civilians as possible to force people to concede, which is why they targeted a school of 165 children that were entirely obliterated. And they targeted a hospital, and they target residential areas all the time. Simultaneously, Iran won't do that. But what Iran is doing is it's targeting the economic sectors, which of course matter the most to both of these entities. So my question to you is should Iran at all be condemned for responding with bombs? But of course, they have their own moral code as to how they do it. And is there a situation where, one can endorse that? Because from my perspective, that's the only thing they can do, or they will be entirely eliminated. And in spite of the fact that they are in danger and that their leader was killed, the Ali Khamenei, in spite of all of that, they refuse, and they have, the leadership has vocally refused to target civilians in Tel Aviv, to just go ahead and obliterate Israel like people are asking. What do you think of that perspective?
Well, I agree. I have to say, like when Food Not Bombs first started, we were supporting the FMLN in El Salvador, and which was an armed conflict. And I designed a button, Food Not Bombs button, that said "U.S. out of El Salvador," that became very popular. And in fact, in Germany, it sold $1 million worth of that button as a fundraiser to buy arms, which were then sent by ship to, I believe, originally Cuba and then smuggled in to the FMLN. My partner was in the war for 6.5 years in El Salvador, Kathleen Lynch. So we've been supportive, before Food Not Bombs, I was supportive of the National Liberation Front in Vietnam, because it's about self-defense is absolutely necessary when you're fighting a ruthless, really like satan. I mean, one of my last, I think, before the war started, I had a Substack that said, baby raping satanic Zionist cannibals are taking us to war, and that's what's happening. And then the other, it's very personal, because my grandfather, who led the most deadly bombing campaign in world history up until now, the firebombing of Tokyo, he explicitly said he was in a satanic cult. He graduated from Harvard Law, Dartmouth College, and he went to the same high school as George Bush Sr. So that's who is in charge of this war and has been in charge of all these wars. And my grandfather argued over the phone for years during the Vietnam War with his friend Curtis LeMay, who at the same time as he was yelling at, and my grandfather and him were yelling at each other over the phone, was trying to get JFK to bomb a mall in Miami to blame on Castro, right? So I know how these people think, how they work, what so-called real politics is. My grandfather died when I was 14, and I was outraged at the pastor who claimed he was a godly person, because as a 14-year-old, I'm like, no, he told me he didn't believe in God. He was in a satanic cult. That's really that. When you are that age and you hear this lie, it really sticks with you. So that's who, when I'm seeing the Epstein files and all that, I think that's also an interesting psych ops too. And it's amazing how that's freaking out a lot of MAGA. MAGA is falling apart, but they don't really have any charismatic leader like, like Charlie Kirk or like, Donald Trump to follow now that everything is falling apart. But so I do think armed resistance is absolutely necessary in a situation. I do not advocate a guerrilla war in the United States, although I know MAGA is trying to organize that against the U.S. government, online anyway. There's certainly, and then a lot of that is FBI trying to get MAGA to have a armed insurgency against the United States. But I don't think any of us want to live. When I went to South Miami-Dade High, we had a lot of shootouts, and I was in one with 75 kids shooting each other for about 45 minutes. And I am not into armed conflicts personally myself. I don't want to be in one. I don't think people really want to be in one. But I do think that we can give a huge debt of gratitude to the people of Iran to stand with their military and to spend all those years where the U.S., look at the United States launched using a proxy army of Saddam Hussein with chemical weapons provided by the U.S. for 8 really ugly, brutal years against Iran. And you can't imagine they're just going to, I really hope they don't surrender. They won't probably surrender. I think that somehow the U.S. will pretend like they won and try to leave. I don't think they're going to succeed, because I think what the leadership of Iran is making real, and even the women on the streets, the beautiful videos of women not, like, I know you were in Iran at one point, you're not wearing a hijab or any of that. I've been all over Islam. It's a completely, I've been all over Indonesia. I've been all over the Islamic areas of Nigeria. I lived in Istanbul for, over half a year. I've been in Palestine a lot. It's not what Americans are thinking or seeing. This is, you can see I posted on Facebook some of my drawings of mosques in Istanbul recently, just to And no one cared that I was not Christian or not Muslim or that I was an anarchist, and I was appreciated wherever I went, and no one, the only people that were jerks in Palestine were like the Texans. They were the only people that gave me crap in Palestine, and I hope they defeat the United States. It needs to be defeated. This has been horrible what the U.S. has done. You look at Wounded Knee, all the massacres of Native people, and that already few million people had already been killed before the U.S. started the United States. It's a war economy, and then the other aspect, of course, is food, not bombs. We're spending billions of dollars a day on a war we're going to lose, while the homeless population is increasing in the United States. Food prices are going up. We're going to have a Great Depression that's probably worse than the Great Depression of the 30s. I've been writing about that. Also, concentration camps for homeless people and undocumented people. That's happening. People are, you're just over the top. Everything I've been saying, based on a whole life of 50 years of being under surveillance by the FBI, by some really brutal stuff by CIA, and by Interpol. I know how the U.S. imperialism works, and I'm 100% behind eliminating it. I've been making these things. Keith McHenry, I don't know if you ever see these on mostly I put it on X, but we have a photo of myself and I go, I endorse the blockade of the Red Sea and Ben Gurion by Ansar Allah, and then I have my little picture looking tough as shit, and then I got like, but keep a quote, my own quote of myself. So I've been like pushing this, like, Ansar Allah, unbelievable, man. Those people are like, they're about to open up here apparently too, and and I think that so what, you're going to take a country, a people that have been doing things for thousands of years on their
millennia.
land. It's just like, the native people of America, thousands of years on their land, just like the indigenous people in Guatemala fighting against the U.S. there, same thing. I'm all for indigenous people winning against corporate power. I'm all for that. And I know I get like anarchists give me crap. Well, those are the mullahs. They believe in God, blah, 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 blah. I think if you're an anarchist, I'm an anarchist. I wrote the most recent edition of the Anarchist Cookbook. You're supposed to be like with the people. And if the people want to, like the Zapatistas are not going, we're like pure above the, Catholicism. Catholicism can be brutal. They did an Inquisition. But also it can be beautiful, right? So, it just depends on the situation. There's like millions of people that are, that's what they grew up with. They integrated their indigenous religions with that, which is a good, scam of the Pope. But they adopted it.
Go ahead, fam.
I guess what you kind of started answering this, but how do you think this ends? As you mentioned, Iran has millennia of doing this. They've been telling the United States they've prepared for this. Like they're telling the U.S. if you want to send ground troops, send them right now.
Yeah.
Like we're ready. We're ready for it. And the United States is toying with the idea. I think they're more likely to send proxies or use proxies like the ISIS that they've unleashed in Syria. Like they want to use some Kurds. They are using Israel's ground invasion of Lebanon. So what we're seeing, and I think what you said is true, Iran is taking on this evil on behalf of the world. And I think a lot of people are looking at this in a very global way, as the battle between good and evil. The Abstain pedophile regime is fighting Iran that, it has, there are none of these people are in the Epstein files. And the Epstein files leadership is protecting each other, and they're benefiting from this war. We're seeing them profit from this war. If Iran fails, I feel like we will enter a very dark era. And I think everything that we're looking at is actually happening towards Agenda 2030, which is obviously the very, very aggressive push towards digital surveillance, and majorly, pretty much every major country, even the BRICS countries, are adopting that stance, that aggressive AI push. The only countries that I have seen not really adopted are like the smaller resistance type of countries. And so I think this is like a last front battle. And I guess looking at the United States as from its inception built on genocide, built on war, built on destruction and death, I think it shouldn't be surprising for a lot of people for its end to be like this. But it does seem like the end of the United States doesn't mean the end of the elite, the predator class that has effectively become stateless. So in a way, people trash on anarchists and people who don't like the government. In a way, they've created themselves a stateless predator elite faction that is nationless, meaning that they have connections across international borders, and they seem to effectively be working together to take down everybody else, right? The 99%, which is, as you mentioned, homelessness in the United States, destruction of lifestyle, mental health and depletion, so many things happening. Where do you see this war taking us next? If it is to either side, whether Iran prevails or the United States and Israel prevail?
Well, if the Israel and the United States prevail, it is definitely, we're going to enter into the worst dark period, because one, they're going to go, oh yeah, we are the gods that we say we are, and they will just like stop at nothing. I mean, a lot of the genocide in Gaza, allowing us to watch it, it was potentially on purpose to say, look, we have no morality. We will stop at nothing, and you will do what we say, right? So if they win, that is what we are definitely looking forward to. And potentially there's a theory that might be true, that they don't mind the U.S. doesn't mind losing this war. Maybe part of the intentionally destroying the U.S. economy is to say, have like a false flag cyber attack by Iran. Oh no, the banking system is down. Only way you can get money now is through our new digital currency that's based on, and you want to get the money, you got to do facial recognition on your cell phone, blah blah blah. So basically everything we were saying about Agenda 30 could be ushered in through this catastrophe. It could be a perfect way to do it, and they might not care that the U.S. is defeated. Because you're right, they've been a stateless. The oligarchs have been stateless people forever. They only use countries and patriotism for their own ends. When I started Food Not Bombs, my girlfriend was dating. She dated two other people, and left them for me, oddly enough. But one was J.P. Morgan's grandson. He had a Gulfstream jet with a hot tub on it. I would take her to JP's, I call them JP's condo. They would fly off for 3 or 4 days. She never had a passport, nothing. They just landed. They go for ice. They went to dinner in Paris, and they went to go dancing in Buenos Aires, and had ice cream in Bangkok on the same weekend. And she didn't have a purse or a wallet or anything. So these people don't have any boundaries. Boundaries are only for us. And in fact, a lot of people, I was on a train from Belgrade to Budapest one time, and the guy who fled Nazi Germany when he was like 14 was telling me, oh, they're not building that wall on the southern border to keep Mexicans out. They're building that wall on the border to keep you in. You got to have an exit plan. And he was telling me about the U.S. and Kosovo that he was fighting at the time as a lawyer for the UN. But anyway, so I think it is important. So now where we're at with this war and its potential next phase, if the damage that's happening to Israel and definitely to the U.S. Reputation is as bad as it seems to be, the Samson option is a very scary option.
There you go.
I think that's why the 12-day war ended in 12 days, because and people wanted Iran to keep going because it's very likely that the United States or Israel will launch a tactical nuclear weapon at Iran at some point here. But I think that they won't win. That still won't do it. What will happen with that is that's going to really outrage the rest of the world that they that they went that far, and it won't defeat Iran. They'll pull the Iranian people together. It's probably the type they'll claim that they had to use a nuke to get to a bunker underground, which by all analysis that I've seen, even a tactical nuke is unlikely to reach their deepest facilities in the mountains outside of Tehran. So I think that basically unless they just nuke all across Iran and there's virtually no Iranians left, that's the only way they're gonna. And I don't see how that. Then it's like, okay, everybody behave, because the Peter Thiel and all these Elon Musk and whoever's behind them, and the Epstein class will say, okay, yeah, Satan does rule, and therefore you do what we say, and that is a real possibility. And maybe that, but also it could be that could be the largest single mistake of the U.S. But these people are crazy. I watched my grandfather argue with McNamara and LeMay to drop the atomic bomb on Hanoi, to send a message to the communists that we will do anything to defend our economic system, not politics. He made it very clear. Elections are to divide the people. We decide, the intelligence community decides who is in power, who isn't. He was involved in the intelligence team before World War II that planned the bombing of Pearl Harbor. So this is the people that we're dealing with. He was a wonderful man. I really liked my grandfather. He never let me beat him at chess. But he also was one of the largest mass murderers in modern history.
Well, Fiorella, she verbally murders people online, and she never lets me beat her in chess either. So they have a lot of similarities there. Look, I've been making a stink, and one of the things I want to hit the ground running, I was obviously in Minnesota, and during the week, one of the most important weeks in a while for the anti-ICE protest that ended the week on I think it was a Friday, or was it a Saturday? I think it was a Friday, where they had a protest, and it was 5-degree weather, and they had 100,000 people in the streets there. And I was so like, this is amazing. And you could tell it was genuine. One of our producers who's in the chat, Fred Edward, who I'm wearing his favorite shirt, he would always like to point out, look at the signs. If you want to see if a protest is genuine, look at the signs. Nobody made 100,000 pussy hats, right, and handed them out. Nobody made a bunch of signs. It was like a big giant potluck. And, you had the Minnesota moms, the white moms, handing out cookies and brownies, and you had the Somali community handing out beautiful tea. Some of the Chinese community, I walked right into an egg roll. It was amazing, you know what I'm saying? But I was so proud to see that happen there, right? And it was so great. But it wasn't the end of it, because a lot of these other states have been taking money to open up these ICE detention centers. And I said, I've been saying for quite some time, like, okay, whatever the empire does abroad, eventually the chickens will come home to roost, and they'll do it over here. Now they're having these ICE detention centers, and they're using the same type of language when it comes to immigrants as they did during the George Bush era when it came to Guantanamo Bay as enemy combatants. Anything to take away due process, anything to take away habeas corpus, anything to take away their rights, right? They are doing. And that's what they're doing to the immigrant here. And I said, they might be for the immigrant today, but they're for us tomorrow. And you mentioned this, that they're putting some of these homeless people into these detention centers. What is going on in Santa Cruz, your hometown, and stuff with food not bombs? And what are you seeing with the ICE detention centers, and maybe the possibility that Americans can be put into these centers?
Yeah, so before COVID, and the then mayor, Donna Myers, and then the actual person behind the Palantir predictive software, Ryan Coonerty, who was a supervisor for the county, they were discussing moving the homeless to Camp Roberts, the California National Guard Armory in counties south of Santa Cruz. And then the board of bless you. And then most recently, a supervisor in the county mentioned that the plan is to remove the homeless from the county. He was not more explicit than that. He's running for re-election, so he's trying to give the impression that he's against it, because his part of the county would be against that, because now they have district elections here. But then they are, interestingly enough, building this mega navigation center, which they're so there's a bunch of crazy things in our town. First of all, out-of-town investors are building high-rise luxury condos all over. We have I think we have 38 major luxury condo developments, which the homeless industrial complex is promoting. So there's the homeless industrial complex here is made up of primarily at this point 3 different agencies, the biggest one being Housing Matters. And they are slowly reducing all of their services. In fact, they're getting rid of all their day services. They just got like nearly $1 million to refurbish their showers. The showers worked for like about almost a year long, and then they just shut them down because so they're shutting down homeless services as fast as possible in our county. And but the homeless industrial, but Housing Matters, for instance, they have a twice weekly sweeps in front of the shelter, where they come through and they people have to scurry away with all their survival gear. They claim what the city does and what Housing Matters does is they give you a deadline of when they're going to clear everything, and they've been coming in usually a day before the deadline, so that people lose all their stuff. This has been pretty common. And also Housing Matters has this annual parade to march to end homelessness in Santa Cruz County. And the homeless union, Santa Cruz Homeless Union, FUNAPOMS, we decided we would mimic their march to end homelessness. But in our case, it would be actual homeless people and regular people trying to end homelessness. And we have 3 demands: stop the sweeps, open the day services for homeless people, and audit the homeless industrial complex. And the homeless industrial complex here is freaking out. They are really upset that we scooped their May march. Now their march costs $65,000 a year to do. They march from about 5 blocks for $65,000. So far, we are under $100 on our march, and we were going to publish all our receipts at the end and show we could do it for. I might spend another $150 on it, but we're not spending $65,000, and we actually spend about between $500 to $1,000 a month on replacing the sleeping bags and tents that are discarded by the homeless industrial complex and the city. And we intercepted through a Public Records Act request. We got email correspondence between the shelter and the city praising the sweeps, and they're getting very, very desperate. But we are losing homeless people because we have out here in California, you have what was called Proposition 1, where a huge percentage of our friends are being disappeared into mental health facilities to never be seen again. So that is happening, and many of my friends have become wards of the state. So they don't have any, they have a conservator who is somebody in the county, and they run all their money and determine where and when they go and what they do. And that's already happening, and that's been happening even before Proposition 1. And basically they're just giving people like psych drugs and forcing them to sit in care facilities. That's the older homeless people. And then, like I say, we're very concerned that they are going to open up these warehouses and so on. And so this new navigation center they're proposing is supposed to be built by 2035. By 2035, the amount of homeless people in the county, if the way the economy is going, could be in the thousands. So they're never going to keep up as far as some alleged compassionate facilities for homeless people. They can't even deal with it now. And we're waiting. We did every day in COVID. We were the only food for 3 years and for homeless people in Santa Cruz, and the only fresh water, unless you bought it at CVS. And we really are responsible for stopping the looting and riots that would have happened had thousands of people in Santa Cruz not had access to food or water. Right? They would have sacked Trader Joe's and New Leaf and Whole Foods in half a second. So anyway, we're preparing. We're getting ready for an economic calamity. We've been slowly buying 50-pound bags of rice at Costco and beans, and we're set up actually to operate without electricity or gas or anything like that, because that's what we're proposing. But people thought we were nuts. But we bought 3 shipping containers, and we're we're using money that people gave us during COVID to bulk up and get ready for this calamity. But
I think we have to have you back for a show and talk about this and this only. But we have run out of time. We have like 20 minutes left of the show. We have to get on to the next couple of things. Keith McHenry, let everybody know where they could find you, where we could help, donate, all that good stuff to Food Not Bombs. And you're looking beautiful, buddy. And can't wait to see you in person again sometime soon.
Yeah. Well, I'm just finishing my memoir, Soup Street. I was in Mexico for 45 days, and I laid it out there while I was on a speaking tour of Mexico. And I'm just maybe waiting. Well, either of you want to write a blurb, email me, keith@foodnotbombs.net, and I'll add a blurb to the book. And also, basically, foodnotbombs.net is where you can connect with me. And then my Substack is Anarchist Cook, and that's keithmchenry.substack. I really piss off a lot of people with my Substack, and I also make a lot of people happy with my Substack. It's free, but you can donate money. I think I made $300 so far in the whole life of Substack. So
yeah,
all goes to Food Not Bombs, so foodnotbombs.net. And we need a lot more Food Not Bombs. And it is very impressive. We are getting emails of people and calls that they're starting local chapters, even in small cities now, all over the United States. And then what we're doing in Asia and in Poland and so on, it's like a mind blower. And in West Asia, it's pretty intense. So,
Keith, my blurb will be: you got the best beard in the game. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll have you on again soon. I love you, buddy.
Yep.
Love you guys too. I want to say one last thing. When Kathleen and we came across your, I forgot what the other show was early on in
Convo Couch.
Convo Couch, and she and I were the only leftists in America who thought the whole thing was a scam. And we were like, oh my God, everybody we know, is right wingers that think this is a scam. And then you guys got on there and talked about it. And she and I were sighed a huge sigh of relief going, oh my God, at least there's 4 of us in America. That
COVID you're talking about?
What?
COVID?
Yeah, COVID.
Yeah.
Because, I was we were organizing against, then it turned, shortly after that, my friend Shannon Murray, who worked on the Moderna vaccine, came to visit, and she was like, this is a nightmare. I could never keep my lab animals alive, man. Don't take this jab. And she was having 80% death rate when she worked at the NIH on the Moderna vaccine. And she did that because we were protesting Fort Detrick and biological weapons stuff back in the early 90s.
Yeah.
And, so we were always on top of it.
When I met you and you drove me to defeat the mandates in LA, I was relieved that somebody of your stature, who was an activist feeding people, the founder of Food Not Bombs, has the same mentality as us. So thank you so much for recognizing us. And, we have been leftists that have been ahead of the curve when it comes to leftists. We were the first leftists to talk about Epstein, and whatnot. So thank you so much for that recognition. It means the world to us. And come back and see us soon.
Yep. You can have me on every 3 days from now on to the end of times. Jesus will return. Jesus will return.
I want a shirt. We want hats. Send us some stuff. I want the carrot and everything.
Yeah,
we
email
love
me
you. Keith
your,
McHenry, everybody.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Bye, Keith.
Bye, guy.
TV land.
He's the best. I love you, Keith. Fam, let's just dive into it. Sorry for hogging the time. I thought your computer was phasing out, so I kept on asking questions thinking that you were going in and out. That was my bad if I stepped on some of your stuff. I apologize.
No, it's fine. We just need to. There's no way I'm going to be able to get through everything today.
No, we'll just do whatever you want.
Section, just let me finish this section, and then you can finish the rest. Okay. So, Jayme, if you could just go to where we left off, back to the UNSC, because I think it's important to discuss this. Nobody else is really going to criticize China or Russia because they're ideologues, and they're not going to really talk about this stuff. So Ali, he's one of the ones that has been critical. Ali Abumina, he's said, I condemn Russia and China in the strongest possible terms for failing to veto another dangerous UN Security Council resolution licensing the US and Israel to wage war on planet Earth. Perhaps they do not realize this fire will consume them too. And I agree, the fire will consume them as well. And I think it's important, like I said, to point out that that's what's coming next. And so this is from the UN Security Council demands Iran cease attacks on Arab states while ignoring US and Israeli strikes. That's the main thing. They were ignoring US and Israeli strikes. Like the next one is Sam Husseini. Sam Husseini is another one that keeps it real for the most part. He's not somebody that's going to be afraid to really say China or Russia didn't do it, because it's not the first time. Like I said, during Gaza, Russia and China from the right of the U.S. client states to not endure retaliation after enabling aggression by the U.S. They are U.S. client states. This is why this is a big deal. In contrast to Russia and China failing to prevent massive aggression against Arab states, Iraq, Libya, and Syria. Again, so this is exactly what I'm talking about. Russia and China they abstained from the vote of when it came to this, but they also didn't do anything when there was violence against Iraq, Libya, and Syria. So they are deferring to the Arab states, you understand? So he's saying, like, the excuse is, oh, they're going along because it has so much support in the Arab states. The Gulf doesn't count. The Gulf is literally like they're vassals to the United States and Israel. This is precisely why they were protecting them against Iran. And this is why Iran had to bomb them. So you can't use the excuse that, oh, it's the Arab world. No, we know for a long time that they're Zionist infested, that they're Zionist infiltrated, and that is precisely why the situation. And a couple more here from the next one. Jayme, I'm just going to go through these very quickly. So when the U.S. supports Ukraine or Israel, they do it openly. They brag about the weapons and intel setup. A 24/7 air bridge. We're told Russia and China are providing support to Iran, but we can't see it. Apparently, they don't take pride in their alliances like the U.S. does. Next one. If you can bring up the next one. For 2 years, the UNSC vetoed 6 resolutions for a ceasefire in a single vote. It moved to disarm the victims of genocide and hand control of Gaza's ruins to war criminals like Jared Kushner and Tony Blair. Now you understand why we call international law a sick joke. Here's the thing. They vetoed 6 resolutions for a ceasefire for 2 years. So they were able to veto it then. And again, there was abstentions from both Russia and China. This is why, like, if you can't do something to withhold your veto and hold your power, then what exactly is the point of anything? And again, like, for all of you pointing out, we know the UN is irrelevant in terms of any sort of international law. You can go to the next one, Jayme. But at the same time, it's constantly being referred to by the entire world. And we're constantly told how much China and Russia are providing aid, right? But they're not. China has provided satellites. There is no evidence, Jayme, that Russia has provided actual defense of what is being told towards Iran. And now there's even less of a likelihood because this just kind of continues to support everything else. So this is what Vanessa said. What makes this even more humiliating is that the U.S. vetoed the Russian draft, but Russia and China passively greenlight, again, the Zionist regional aggression and genocide. Meanwhile, Putin's special envoy, Kirill Dmitriev, is meeting with the Zionist cabal in the U.S. So if you can scroll down, Stephen Witkoff on X. Today in Florida, the Russian delegation led by Special Envoy Kirill Dmitriev met with the U.S. delegation, including Special Envoy Stephen Witkoff, Jared Kushner, and the White House Senior Advisor Josh Gruenbaum. The teams discussed a variety of topics and agreed to stay in touch. Do you think it's a coincidence that this is happening at the same time? It's not. To preemptively respond to the comments I know are coming, one, Dmitriev is fully supported by Putin. He is not acting alone. It would be impossible for him to act alone. No, he is not qualified to discuss ending the Israel-U.S. war of aggression against Iran. He is an oligarch with strong U.S. banking and Zionist and Arab Persian Gulf state ties. And it's true. I mean, he is. You can look at any sort of information page about him. I've already laid it out for a lot of people. You can't ignore those money ties just because it's Russia. And we like Russia, right? The next one, none of you... Well, she's responding to a comment. She talked about since 2011, China used a veto 8 times on Syria-related resolutions. And you can also look this up if you can scroll up. Russia 14 times to prevent the chemical weapons accountability and threatened Western bombing campaign, flying zones, etc. Since 2000, Russia has vetoed 27 resolutions, China 13. Since Trump came to power in 2025, neither have used their veto, despite some of the most pressing issues in history being at stake. Number 1, Gaza genocide and West Bank final solution. 2, the long war of aggression against Iran. On March 22nd, 2024, China and Russia jointly vetoed a Biden-proposed resolution on Gaza. I find this very revealing. These are facts. This isn't my opinion. This isn't like anybody's opinion. This is just what has happened in the context. And as somebody that's lived in Russia, that has Russian ties, that loves Russia, I am telling you, this is worthy of criticism. This is not coming from a place of even like just going after Russia. It's coming from a place of understanding what's happening. Clearly, there is a fifth column in Russia attempting to create a closeness between Russia and the United States that wants a resolution to the Ukraine war, that wants the closeness to the West. And there are people within Russia that don't want that don't like what's happening here. But it has to be said that that is taking Russia in a dangerous route towards the Western 2030 like surveillance state. And that's also happening right now in conjugation with it. And I know this because I look at things realistically, because I'm not paid by any state, because I can say this freely as somebody that understands what's actually happening, that has Russian people complaining to me about why is this happening. And I don't focus on it because clearly we're the ones pushing people to the extremes. The United States and Israel are the ones that are using and manipulating everything that will eventually hurt both China and Russia. And that's why I say this stuff, because eventually it will hurt them in the long run. And Pasta, before I bring it to you, I wanna just read China's the foreign minister. We don't have to play the video, but this is what he said, right? This is what they said, because a lot of people got pissed off with me saying that I misconstrued what they said, but this is what they said. On the situation in Iran, Foreign Minister Wang Yi has recently reached out to the relevant parties and once again communicated with his counterparts of regional countries through phone calls to call for peace and hostilities and de-escalation. Iran doesn't want peace unless Israel is stopped. And if nobody's going to do that, then they're going to continue, as is their right. Foreign Minister Wang Yi pointed out that this is a war that should not have happened. It is a war that does not do anyone good. Without the UN's authorization, the US and Israel attacked Iran in the process of the ongoing US-Iran negotiation, which clearly violates international law. Country sovereignty, security, and territorial integrity should be respected. China does not go along with the attacks against countries in the Gulf region and condemns non-discriminatory attacks against civilians or non-military targets. The pressing priority now is to stop military operations at once and prevent the conflict from spreading. The way out of the conflict is to return to dialogue and negotiation as soon as possible to strive for restoration of peace. The fundamental solution is to jointly return to the right track of abiding by international law and basic norms of international relations. The problem with this statement is international law is protecting Israel and the United States. The problem with this statement is he mentions the attacks against the Gulf region. But what about Israel and the United States? They know that Israel and the United States attacked Iran first. So what do you expect Iran to do to defend itself? I mean, this is both siding the whole thing. And this is all I get from China. They're both siding the situation. People say, well, they don't get involved. Well, you have to get involved now. This is the thing. You can't just claim neutrality and claim to be Switzerland when the reality is you are not Switzerland. You are very much involved in this. And there are conflicts of interest that you have to make a decision on. And that goes for both Russia and China. You can't forever be a partner to Iran and simultaneously protect Israel's interests. You can't forever have a very huge business transaction with Israel in relevance to China, and then also and the Gulf states, and then also say you're a partner to Iran. Now that the war has reached this peak, you can't both sides this whole issue. So and the last thing I want to say, Pam.
So
yeah, okay, well, go ahead.
Put us up, and this is the great thing about the TruthWire, about the Convo Couch, because we can do these things. We don't have to plan these things. I don't have to ask Fam off the camera, Fam, how about today we explain, people are saying that, well, you were such a pro-Russia person. Remember, like the I Love Putin shirt and all this other stuff, and China. How do you explain what's happening now? Because there's a lot of truthers out there. And I was on Saturday Night Anarchy, which is like a kind of like a subdivision of AM Wake Up, right? Like these people, these anarchists, whatnot. And I still disagree with them, where they kind of put the same level of footing on China and Russia. I'm like, wait a second. China and Russia don't have 1,000 bases outside the United States. China and Russia don't have the imperialist kind of behavior that United States and Israel have. How do you square that circle when people say, well, what gives, Fee? You used to be more pro-Russia and pro-China now. What happened?
It's not about being pro-Russia or pro-China. It's about being pro-truth. If you follow that, you can be easily consistent. If you are listening to people who are directly paid and cannot speak freely, then there's a reason why I'm not. Because when it came to the moment where I couldn't speak freely against what the Zionists were doing, when it came to that moment, I made a decision that was financially just destructive for me in general. I mean, because for me, it's not about money. I mean, if it were about money, I'd be at CNN. We both have the capacity to be pretty much anywhere at that point. We're extremely intelligent, and Pasta in his very gangster book smart way, but we are not street smart way, but we're capable of seeing the truth. We're capable of looking at things from a place that is consistent. And I think a lot of people that people listen to, unfortunately, cannot be or have chosen the side of like being ideologues, like of being, just people who follow whatever is their ideological, like the Marxists. This is the next. I just want to show this next tweet from Daniel Fuchs, because Marxist-Leninists who shut down any criticism of Russia and China are not letting their emotions get in the way of the material understanding of the world we live in. We are living in a world that is operating pragmatically. It's not operating like from the perspective that a lot of people wanted China and Russia and Iran to be this trifecta that rescue the world. Iran is doing it, but China and Russia are not there. They're not ideologically doing this. They're in it to look at their own interest, and that's fine, because at the end of the day, the world is operating as such that countries are looking out for their own interests, because the United States basically has forced people to operate like that. This is like, if you don't operate like this, if you don't look out for your own interests, the mentality is you can't compete with the United States. So I, in a way, understand what they have had to do to kind of be at equal footing with the United States. From a pragmatic, realpolitik approach, I can understand that, and I can even appreciate it. But there comes a line that you don't cross. There comes a moment where you have to say, after 2 years of genocide, after the U.S. literally goes and assassinates whoever they want. I mean, from Soleimani to Hassan Nasrallah to now Ali Khamenei, and whoever else is next. I mean, they completely, and Israel as well. I mean, we're talking together. They have done this. If you don't stand up to that, you are complicit. And that's what it is. They have the power, especially China, to do this. They have the power to stand up and to do something about it. And they're not doing it. So how do you justify that as an ideologue? If your ideology is a communist ideology where you're talking about the people of the world unite, workers of the world unite against the empire, this isn't that. No matter how many millions China has lifted out of poverty, no matter how great China is in advancement in technology, is that going to be enough to actually oppose the hegemonic evil that we're facing? I don't think so.
Yeah. And let me just say this much. So much has changed since what's happened in Gaza. That's when the shit really hit the fan. That's when you could say, okay, enough is enough. But even though when people are saying, oh, yeah, these people are talking behind closed doors, you know, this is kind of like World Economic Forum-ish, you know, not to say that it's just that WEF, like, and you know, we're people like us who said, yeah, but you know, the World Economic Forum took Russia, you took Putin off their website. It seems like Putin's acting in a very nationalistic way, and let's not forget that
it is in a way.
And his approval rating, Vladimir Putin, for his country is way higher than any president we've had in our modern time for quite some time. And I'm not going to say that that's the way to go. We were never ideologues. I don't have a Xi Jinping tattoo on my arm. I don't wear, a pro-Russia shirt and saying I conform to the communist socialist system, right? But to sit there and act like they're on equal footing, I'm so sorry. I don't agree with that. You know, if I had to make a choice between which country I think are acting way better as far as the superpowers, I'm going to say China and Russia, because we don't see the death and destruction. However, what we've consistently seen is that they do want to be part of the West as far as economic, trades and economic conditions. And they're going to, continue to do so. I think at the end of the day, they are more acting in what they feel is a pragmatic way and not an idealistic way. But to say that they are still acting on equal footing, no. And I think that is something that has been misunderstood by us. I think that since we've kind of pointed that out, and the whole Russia-Ukraine situation, still at the end of the day, when you look at it, I still think that what Russia was doing was justified. You know what I'm saying? I think that 100%, and I think that's where people get lost when it comes to us, fam. But if you have any final words, I'm going to have I'm going to do one more section, and I'm going to have a special guest come on with me to do so.
No, that's great.
Any final words?
The two last things I want to point out here, Jayme, if you can put them up. So in context of all of this, Russian oil has been exempted from U.S. sanctions. As long as it was loaded onto any vessel before March 12th, the exemption will last 1 month. This is from the U.S. Treasury Department. This doesn't apply to any transactions related to Iran. So immediately, right, during this time, what are we seeing? I just want you all to get the background of what's happening here. By the way, Russia is not the Soviet Union, okay? Just so we're very clear, it hasn't been the Soviet Union for a long time. The government does not operate like the Soviet Union. Some institutions like education and healthcare, way better than in the United States. But they are not the Soviet Union. So get that out of your mind. Russian oil is exempted from U.S. sanctions. This is going to benefit Russia, who needs it right now, because the economy has high inflation right now. And so this is actually a benefit to Russia. So the war, in a way, has become a benefit. Now, here's the other thing I want to point out. Russia is earning an additional 150 million of revenue per day from soaring oil prices. So again, people ask, well, why would, how this is negatively impact, it will negatively impact Russia and China. Well, in the long run, yeah, but in the short run, Russia's actually making a lot of money. So the Russian government could receive 3.3 to 4.9 billion in overall additional revenues by the end of March, according to the outlet FT calculations based on industry data and several analyst assessments. The surging oil prices triggered by the Middle East conflict involving the United States, Israel, and Iran is benefiting Russia in a big way. According to Financial Times, Russia is earning as much as $150 million in additional revenue, making it the biggest winner from the conflict in the Middle East. Okay, so in that context, guys, just so you know, they are making the money, they are benefiting from this, but who will ultimately take that money? I want you to know it's not going to be the majority of the Russian people that are going to benefit from that money. It's going to be in the upper echelons of the sector. And I say that as somebody that knows that also happens in the United States. Now, I hope that it does help Russia, because like I said, they're not in the best economic situation right now. And I hope that the people do see the money in terms of salary increases, in terms of the reduction in food prices that have gone up almost to the equivalent of US prices. I mean, things have really gone up in the last 3 years since I've been in Russia. And you know, I think what people need to look at is the money and what's actually happening action-wise behind the scenes along with these votes. Yes, the UNSC doesn't matter, but in the context of what's actually happening, then you can kind of guess where this is going. So as somebody that would benefit greatly from this Russia-Ukraine war ending, you know, is that a positive? I think it would be a positive in some ways, but also in other ways, what is going to be the price for that to happen? Yeah. So yeah, that's all.
Yeah. I know you got to leave, but I want to bring somebody in because he has a comment to make about pizza. Guys, we're going to have a special guest come on in to finish a section with us. We've also invited Keith McHenry if he wants to come back in. But fam, you've been telling me about Moscow pizza. Kit Cabello is here. He's a very strong supporter of, I believe he's a Pequod guy, which was one of the reasons why when we went to Lou Molinati's and we were not impressed, and you were like, Fam even said, like, this is the pizza that Kit is standing by and supporting. Fam, any words about the pizza in Chicago versus the pizza in Moscow?
Listen, Kit, the pizza in Moscow, the pizza in St. Petersburg, the pizza in Peru is much better than Chicago pizza.
Well,
those are the realities.
Before the family squabble, Moscow is and was a sister city of Chicago, just like Kiev, and Moscow learned its cooking techniques from us. So in many ways, you are enjoying an extension of Chicago-style pizza because we're an international brand. Look, when I said we're going to take over the world, I meant it, all right? Even on Kick. Give me time. When I take over the Kick platform, and I will, you know, this is going to be an international – step aside, global elite. Kit Cabello and his cult is going to be taking over, okay? So Chicago style will be winning the day. It's probably the best style to win.
Yeah. And he also said, Sam, he said that Lou Molinati's was not the place to go to in Chicago. That it's just
it probably wasn't.
Yeah.
It probably wasn't. Well, guys, have a great rest of the show. I'll see you all on Monday. And nice to see you, Kit.
That's good to see you too. It's great to be back.
Bye, fam. Oh, in and out.
In and out. There you go. There you go.
There you go. Chicago casserole loses in the end, fam. Sorry about that, Kit.
We're taking over. Trust me on it. Look, man. When I take over Kick, when I take over the Kick platform, it's gonna go crazy, man.
So let's talk really quickly because I know you've been following this war and there's so many things to talk about. We're gonna do Iran. I don't know. Was that Jayme putting some Kit? He was doing the Kit sound.
Yeah, that's perfect. I love it.
So let me say this much. When it comes to Kit Cabello, right?
Everything that guy just said is bullshit.
About Chicago pizza, right? Anyways, short story long, Kit. We have the supreme leader. His son now has taken over. Yes. You guys have been doing some excellent coverage on your channel when it comes to this too as well. Before we get to his demands and whatnot, and we talk about that before the realistic, I want you to give us your initial feeling about what's going on, this whole situation. Did the United States and Donald Trump get themselves into a mess that they can't back out of? Mm-hmm. What are you seeing? What are you thinking? What are your overall thoughts as we see this every single day being played out in the mainstream media, where they kind of just are very, very one-sided according to them? You know, Iran is falling. We're hitting all their missile launchers where they're almost down to enough. We've decimated their navy. They don't even have a navy. And Iranian people are in the streets wanting the Shah to come back. Meanwhile, when you look online for the people we know, all the people that go on Judge Napolitano, the Scott Ritters, the Larry Johnsons, they're like, no, Iran has hit all the bases in the Gulf and they're packing up and leaving. They have destroyed all the THAAD systems, which are the defense systems in which they send out these missiles to go and hit the incoming missiles. They've been taking them out with drones, in fact, like $250,000 drone, taking out a $1 billion detection system. We hear reports that Tel Aviv is getting hit left and right. Give us your overall assessment of what you think is going on right now.
It's a two-part thing. First of all, I mean, Trump and his administration, the Epstein administration, Epstein administration, already admitted that the reason why we are in this military conflict was to get ahead of Israel. So this is the second time. First time was last year in 2025. This is the second time in which U.S. forces have actively bombed and engaged with military conflict and war with Iran. So this is, yes, at behest of Israel. All right. This is about getting control and having a global initiative of having control of the oil, the black liquid substance that drives every nation mad, because this is how we built our entire economy and society on. We are the new Bronze Age, but we are heading towards the Bronze Age or Oil Age collapse, where one day this Texas tea is going to be gone. This is for the benefit of the warmongers, and also this is the great distraction of the Epstein files. Let's be very clear on this. This is a wag the dog moment, so that people are not paying attention to the most prolific human trafficker in international history. This is a war to distract people so we don't pay attention to the most vile, evil actions of our lawmakers, celebrities, rich elite, powerful bankers, and everything else, in which they formed the shield wall to protect Epstein and Miss Maxwell. And the regrettable actions that we're seeing here, and I just want to add a correction, it's not only just $250,000 drones, it's $20,000 drones, okay? Iran is fighting on the cheap here. Right. Yeah. And Iran and Iraq are two different things altogether. And while Iraq might have a small port city, it's mostly a landlocked nation. Iran has a lot of coastal territory, and they have been preparing for this for quite some time. They're the dude that was itching to fight somebody that you see in a street corner that you'd be like, I could probably take him on, but it's going to be a fight, if you're dumb enough to try and go up against crazy. And we have to remember, too, that all this talk about the Shah, it's the most annoying thing I've ever heard. Can we rewind back the clocks and talk about what was before the Shah, which was a national government, a quasi-republic, democracy, whatever you want to call it. It had the controversial idea of actually, using its oil and natural resources to help build the nation up, invest in the people, invest in infrastructure. And the U.S. government, British oil, American oil, Dwight D. Eisenhower, Churchill, American intelligence, British intelligence, all did a coup to replace the national government and put in the Shah. There's a reason why the Ayatollah exists. People need to ask why the Ayatollah was there, and then the Shah. Why was the Shah removed? What caused the people to leave that great Western propaganda where the women weren't wearing any like covering, or no one was worrying about what the Ayatollah would say? There has to be a before. What happened before? That's the key issue, the key question. And I see that on Piers Morgan show. They all talk about the Shah. I see everyone else talking about the Shah. Talk about before. Because Iran saw what we did. In 1950, this is what we did to their government. And the thing is, we should be screaming bloody murder if somebody ever did that to us. But, oh, wait, we got AIPAC. Because every congressman and woman is bought. Thomas Massey told Tucker Carlson, everybody has an AIPAC babysitter. And by having a babysitter, we're doing this now. So let me get a second point to this. I'm working 3 jobs right now just to make ends meet, just to survive. I'm dealing with my own troubles, and that's it. That's all I'm going to say. But I want to be very clear on this. The people I talk to, I do manual labor. I do also voice acting here and there. Everyone's muttering the same thing. Why are we at war? Why are we at war? Like, this is a concern. And not to mention, why? Because everyone's struggling to survive. Gas in California is going to be $8. Gas in New York, Illinois, and other states getting to $4, $5. Food prices rising up. Look, if it really does get to the point, as Iran threatened, $200 a barrel, there's no small going down to this. This is a huge economic impact that we're dealing with. And the U.S. Navy, as powerful as it is, it cannot always escort every single ship, because there's always going to be some technical error, a delay. How much are we going to be paying to escort these ships? It's going to cost money. It's the key word, money. I mean, that's why one of the main reasons why Trump got elected into office was because Biden and his administration, another Epstein administration, oops, I'm sorry, that offended people, was failing with the economy. And Trump came in as a peace candidate, but also someone's going to get the economy rolling again. And we're in war. And this is the precipice of World War III. And in turn, Iran is doing something that it didn't do in 2025, and that is, let's do a ceasefire. Let's have a ceasefire. Like, they learned their lesson not to have a ceasefire again, because now if they're really ready to throw down, are we putting boots on the ground? Is Israel going to join forces with us and have boots on the ground? Are they going to bring one of their battalions or legions in here? Because Iran saw U.S. operations in Iraq and Afghanistan. Iran saw our operations in Libya and in Syria. And of course, Iran saw the actions of Israel and its genocide in Gaza. So let's break this all apart here. Iran wants to get in a strengthened position. And that means also the whole international community is going to be seeing this and wondering, okay, USA, what's going on here? Look what's happening to the Gulf states. Look at the Emiratis. Look at the royalty. Remember, these governments, these ruling class people, and these kings in like the UAE and everywhere else, they're not really liked too much by their people. The only reason why they're there is because of the U.S. military bases, and because we're investing into it, and because there's all that propaganda of, oh, no, they're modernizing. Well, tell that to the workers of the slave labor that built the Dubai, right? That city's going under, right? That city's going to be in 19 or maybe 20 days or so. If food and resources don't start coming in, if this war starts intensifying, that little fake city is going to be nothing more than shattered glass. But that's my rant.
Yeah. Well, that's a great rant, and there's a lot to say, because you kind of incorporated what's going on in the United States, the whole administration, pointing out that this is both the Epstein coalition, Epstein empire, Epstein administrations, because they have been Epstein administrations. I like the fact that there's a lot of people going, yo, Obama wasn't mentioned in it and stuff, and Gavin Newsom wasn't mentioned in it. It's like, yeah, they only released half of that stuff. Maybe 10% of the data has been out there. And there are people very closely connected with both Gavin Newsom and Barack Obama that are very much inside those. I mean,
they all know. They all know, Pasta.
Richard Branson.
They all know, but they all knew. Sorry, I don't
Richard
mean to yell,
Branson.
but yeah.
But there's more to it. I think they were involved. Richard Branson is all in those fucking things. He went fucking sailing. Barack Obama went sailing with that guy. They had their shirts off, taking pictures. What's his name? Tom Pritzker, I believe, right? One of the Pritzkers, who was the one, there was an email that said, he sent it to Epstein that he's in somewhere in Afghanistan, and he's in an all-boys camp. It's his dream come true. That guy made Gavin Newsom, right? He donated so much to Gavin Newsom back in the days. Gavin Newsom is tied to him, tied to Nancy Pelosi. They're all running in the same clan. So I always tell people, pay attention to what wasn't mentioned inside the Epstein files, because now they're trying to use it as narrative management. They want you to be mad at certain people. And at Donald Trump, whether all those accusations are true or not, he is definitely guilty of trying to run cover for all these people. So at the very least, he's guilty of that.
The worst case scenario, again, like the
worst case scenario or best case scenario.
How about this? Worst case scenario is, again, these are allegations, and I'm going to vomit in my brain. Innocent till proven guilty in a court of law. God, that hurt to even say that. But I mean, if he's doing cover, it's like, okay, well, wait a minute, hold on. You proclaim yourself to be a good guy, and you're not going to talk about holding the most prolific human trafficker in international history accountable for his actions. It's like, again, these rich people and celebrities who make themselves look like to be good guys, they don't even do the right thing, and that is expose these monsters for who they are. I mean, you would think with the society that we live in, see something bad, say something. But no, they all benefited from the Epstein circle. And of course, what better way to distract the Epstein society, the Epstein infrastructure, and that is have a war so that people lose interest in the Epstein files. The reason why there's a war going on, and again, maybe I'm sound conspiratorial. Alex Jones, step aside, because I've literally snapped. at the amount of evil in here, and really the lack of response. I'm really shocked at how docile people are right now. But again, remember, this isn't the first time we've seen this, because people were docile with people like Caligula and Nero and Genghis Khan and all these other monsters and tyrants who did horrific things. This isn't the first time we've seen the rich society have their secret cults, secret societies, and all this other kind of stuff. But I think it's the first time for us in a modern day and age society where I'm able to communicate to you with these tubes and bulbs called the internet, and we could talk about this. And I think there's a collective shock of, oh, for the last couple of decades, I've been paying my tax dollars so these politicians can protect PDF files. That's the truth of it. Like and like good cucks, and I'm not being disrespectful to nobody here, but like good cucks, we're all paying our taxes. We're just kind of bowing our head because we are the children of alcoholics, and we're afraid of that smack of the back of the hand so we don't get hit. But we gotta realize if we are the good people we say we are, we cannot tolerate this system and the amount of people that benefited and wanted to be with somebody like Epstein, because there's another Epstein waiting in wings. One of my heroes is in the Epstein files. You know, the guy who advised Spielberg for Jurassic Park. And I know it sounds like nothing, it sounds trivial, but I'm hurt by this. I'm hurt by this, Tone. How much more betrayal can I take? You know, Jack Horner. And in his email, he says this. Tell Jeffrey and the girls they were great. Like, oh, really? And this was after Epstein was hit with engaging with a minor. Because he wanted to do his Chickenosaurus project. That's a lot of these intellectuals. If you got the cash, they don't ask. Anyways.
So Trump just posted some stuff too about the Iran war, acting as if they're completely decimating what's going on. I'm going to play something else. I don't know if this guy hurt you too as well. And I told a lot of people, there were people I worked for back in the past to not go along with what this dude's saying. His name is Rob Schneider. And Rob Schneider. You got to watch this bullshit here. I don't know how you feel about this, though, Kit. This is Rob Schneider just the other day talking about this administration Trump put together is the best administration of my lifetime.
Oh, really? Okay.
Here we go.
This administration he put together is the best administration of my lifetime.
And you are entitled to that opinion without being derided.
Without being derided, and also without being deprived of work. The idea
that
I
hate that is so bad.
Yeah, it's awful. I mean, like, look, I realize that, you know, it's so funny because, you know, people, you know, they accuse people who are conservative, like, you're right-wing grifting. The grifting is the left. If you just shut up and if you just go along with this insanity and this.
I love the way that these people, right, they're still playing the right versus left game. They want to keep you in that kind of fucking team sports mentality, not realizing, like you laid it out, Epstein administration, Biden, and Trump. It's the same fucking thing, Rob. And don't act like you don't fucking know. You're smarter than that. But I mean, once again, this is a pro-Zionist and stuff, and this is why that rescued the Republic. I called it Rescue the Republicans. Like, nobody should have participated in that. The only person who really came out looking good was Douglas McGregor, because he warned everybody that the administration coming in and Washington, D.C. itself is wanting to go to war with Iran. Well, what he said has come true. And he on that stage, he said, Iran, a country that never attacked us. But all these other idiots, they were pro-Zionist, they were pro-war, they are neocons, and now they're doubling down and still supporting it. Instead of saying, holy shit, you know, the meme I like best, Kit, is the one where it's the Wolf of Wall Street and they're all on the boat going hip hop, hooray, ho, and it's beautiful, calm waters. It's sunny, it's beautiful. And then it goes 5 seconds later and it's stormy, windy. And what's his name? Leonardo DiCaprio's coming on and go, what the fuck is going on out there? The jet skis just went over. That's the Trump administration. That's where we're at. Let me play the rest of this and I'll get your comments.
It's liberal, and yes, men, you know, can be women if they say they are, if they put up enough makeup on, and if they, you know, they.
I also got to pause and say I really hate that. That's the synthetic left. That's this small group of fucking people. That doesn't represent the majority of real liberals, of real leftists, okay? That represents a small group of people, and you're trying to cast that on everybody. Just the same the way you try to spread the same message of every Islamic terrorist or crazy jihad all over the top is all Muslim and Arab people. Your fucking bullshit is not working anymore.
They tuck whatever. It's like, no, at a certain point, you have to, there's either reality, there's logic, and you have a culture that you care for, either defend women and the idea of this misogynistic crap that this culture has been going through. If you don't, you know, speak up against that, then I think you're not a man. And we have people, and I'm not going to not stand up for women. I'm not going to not stand up for my culture and this amazing country that has provided the most remarkable opportunity for anybody who comes here and work their ass off. But you got to.
Really? Is that fucking happening nowadays? Kid, is the workforce okay right now? Weren't you just talking about how gas is out of fucking control, how food is out of control? I can tell you that my generation cannot buy fucking houses.
Nope.
We worked our ass off our whole life. And before I did this fucking thing, I was working 60 hours a week in a restaurant all my life. So don't fucking tell me that this is a place where you can come and work hard, fucking do the right thing, and obtain the house with the white fence and the picket yard.
Yeah,
because it's simply not fucking true. Go ahead, kid.
And I'm also going to add on here too. Like, look, there's a real problem here with, especially because I think the day that I have feared, and Pasta. Look, look, you've heard me rant about this. Everyone in our sphere, even those across the political aisle on the right, have heard me give this same rant. I think the day of the big battle axe, the big guillotine is coming for like online censorship. So it's interesting to see somebody like Rob Schneider, go ahead and say like, well, if you don't work hard, if you work hard, you can make something. Well, the thing is now things are pretty unattainable, and as this war continues on, the real reality is going to come crashing down. I feel like we are in the first Mad Max movie, or again, everyone knows about Road Warrior. Everyone forgets about the first Mad Max movie. Civilization's still there, but it's crumbling. You see it. It's right there, and it's very subtle the way it's kind of presented. The cracks are there, and civilization isn't holding on by its hands. It's holding on by the fingertips, and the fingertips are starting to get curled off, and it's falling into the abyss. Let gas prices continue to rise up. Let us get to $200 oil barrel of oil or higher. Remember, there is no social safety net here for Americans. All of our tax money is going to wars, bailing out banks, and to Israel. That's where all our money's going to. There is no safety net. And so then let's talk about social media, because I'm working 3 jobs. We're all busting our asses off here. And then on top of that, there's the online censorship. There's now more censorship than I've ever seen before. There was a meritocracy. I remember it. That's how old I am. I remember when there was somewhat of a meritocracy before the algorithms started weighing in. Hey, latte drinking liberals, you got what you wanted. Now everyone's being silenced.
Yeah, and somebody said in the chat, he's a Jew, case closed. He's not. That doesn't mean shit. Max Blumenthal is a Jew. Would he have the same opinions as this guy? Right? Is Aaron Mate going to have the same opinions as Rob Schneider? Is Katie Halper going to have the same opinions as Rob Schneider? So no, he's a Zionist. It's a big difference. Language fucking matters, everybody. Use the right language. Don't get fucking falling into that trap, because that's how they justify every single day attacks. They want to conflate the difference between Jews and Zionism. No, it's not. It doesn't make a difference that he's Jewish. He's a Zionist. He's a conservative-friendly, Trump-loving, nose-up, RFK's ass Zionist. That's what he is.
I come in with good intentions. And that's the problem.
And that comes from your mom.
That comes from my mom, absolutely.
So your mom drilled that into you.
Yes.
And you still have it, and that's admirable.
I'm done with that. I don't even want to hear his answers anymore. By the way, that was Bill O'Reilly. Bill O'Reilly died about 3 years ago, and unfortunately, nobody's told.
Wow.
No. It's it's a Don Rickles joke. Bill O'Reilly's dead, but unfortunately, nobody's told him that. He's still walking around. I was doing a Don Rickles joke.
I think I was going to say, hold
on.
It
was a Don Rickles joke. You ruined it, kid.
I'm sorry.
Just like you ruined the pizza wars. Listen, we have by the way, there is a new supreme leader of Iran. It happens to be his son. And he had a fiery speech the other day. Now, if you listen to mainstream media, if you listen to Fox News, you're going to see once again. And Donald Trump was coming out saying, we're doing this. We've decimated their weapons. We've decimated their society economically. We've hit them. They have no navy. We're getting all the missile launchers. We are beating them up left and right. But you wouldn't know that if you look at it, reading the New York Times. And the New York Times is ridiculous and whatnot. And you look online and you see exactly what's going on. You see the pictures. You're going to see that Iran is really having the upper hand. They're hitting the bases left and right. You're talking about the inexpensive drones. They launched all these missiles they had from years and years ago, and the defense systems were billions of dollars to go shoot down these missiles. Also, there was reports that countries like Qatar, Bahrain, UAE, they were really upset because they diverted the defense systems, the Americans, to go and save Israel and help Israel, not them. So once again, you know who your friends are. But the new what's it, Ayatollah? Is that what you call it? The
Ayatollah, yeah.
Yeah, in in Iran, the Sun, has made some demands. Go ahead. Let's bring this tweet up over there. In a fiery speech the other day, he said these things. Jayme? Not ready? There we go. Here we are. And a lot of time, Jayme. Bring up the tweet. There it is. Iran's new supreme leader, how do you say his name? Mojtaba Khamenei, in a fiery speech has declared, number one, neighboring countries must immediately close all American bases in the region or we will attack them. Number two, we will obtain compensation from the enemy for Iranian losses. If they refuse, we will confiscate their assets to the extent we deem appropriate. If not possible, we will destroy assets of equal value. So one way or another, you're going to pay us or you're going to lose shit to that value. The Strait of Hormuz will remain closed. No matter how much Donald Trump says anything about it, the strait is closed. People are really suffering for this. Other fronts will be opened in vulnerable areas where the enemy lacks experience and is extremely weak. These new fronts may be activated in the state of war if the state of war continues and if deemed appropriate.
Well, I can answer this right here. Because look,
Go
first
ahead.
of all, we're seeing it firsthand. Even before he even made that statement, what happened? Iran, right now, through its actions of launching missiles, be they worth 20,000 or 250,000. That's the first. I got to be honest. That's the first time I heard of 250,000. I've been only hearing the number of 20 like drones that cost like $20,000 to build. But nonetheless, I mean, no matter what, I mean, it's pretty shocking that millions of dollars in missile defense systems are failing against something that is either 5 figures or 6 figures large. Okay. And Iran is destroying the Gulf's image as a luxurious safe haven. I mean, this is Dubai. The fall of Dubai is something that I feel I've done a lot of videos on it already. It's something that all of us in independent media should do a case study on because it is where the rich were hiding all their money. It was a tax haven. That's where the crypto bros go. This is where the tech bros go. OnlyFans girls go. This is where all the rich people go. Old wealth goes, and they hid their money so they don't pay taxes and everything else. And that image just got shattered. I mean, this was unthinkable last year. Even in January of 2026, and now here we are in just a few short days after the 28th, we're seeing so much money leave. We're seeing the city literally get shaken to its foundations, and they're holding on. But the longer this war goes on, the more we'll see that facade break. So we're seeing that happen in real time. And the canary in the coal mine is these Gulf cities like Abu Dhabi and Dubai and others failing, falling. I mean, already the F1 Grand Prix is canceling its actions in Bahrain.
I saw that in Bahrain.
And that's one of my guilty pleasures. Okay, like look, I like reality TV show for Hell's Kitchen. That's one of my guilty pleasures. The other one is the F1 racing. I like that.
Well, listen, we have to close the show. It's 3:00. It's time to get out of here, kid. I want to thank you for joining in. And by the way, they're trying to cover that up. They were in Fox News, had a correspondence in Dubai today, so they're trying to show as if everything's normal over there and it's not getting hit left and right. And I said this before because this is going to be different. I wonder what Iran's going to do if they force the Americans to leave these bases in those areas. What happens to those countries next? Because if I'm Iran, I'm not letting those monarchies stay there. No way. I'm gonna try to force an uprising from the people over there in those countries to take control of the assets, take control of the land. Have a democratically elected leaders and whatnot, have a government, whatnot. That's what I would do if I was Iran. I would never let the monarchies stay there anymore. And I hope the monarchies don't come after me. Kit, I want to thank you for joining the show again today. Please let everybody know where they can find you, what days you do your show. And please come back again with us soon. I hope you're not offended by Fiorella trashing on Chicago pizza, but it really is more of a casserole and not a pizza. Please go ahead.
Come on, man. No problem. So listen, Heartlands Media is live every Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 9 a.m. Saturday, we do an only Patreon show, only Patreon show, and then we do Sunday brunch at 10 a.m. Central. So Saturday, 10 a.m. Central for patrons, Sunday, 10 a.m. Central, and of course, Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 9 a.m. Central. And Pasta, I want to thank you again for your solidarity and love, especially for all I'm dealing with. And you guys, everyone out there, thank you for your love and support, standing tall. And here's to better days ahead to all of us. And make today count and make the weekend count.
We're going to make it count. Kit, thank you so much for joining us. Come back and see us soon. Guys, I want to let you guys know that we do have a Give, Send, Go. If you want to help on out, please go to the Give, Send, Go. It's givesendgo.com/election integrity matters. Help out if you can. That's an old picture of me and Fee. When we were doing what the Heartlands Media guys were doing in Chicago, we said we're going to do that in California. And that was at I believe it was the San Diego Convention Center. It was one of the first things we did when we went to cover the Democratic Party. So that's an old school picture. And we are just tickled pink to be with you today, fighting the suppression. We're still demonetized on YouTube, not making $1 over there, and not finding a lot of help and loved ones out there that we really want to take our show and pay us for what we do. So we depend upon you. So if you can go on to that Give, Send, Go. And if you can't give, share. Hit that share button, share it out there. All your help is appreciated and needed. I am Craig Pasta Jardula for Kit Cabello, Keith McHenry, Fiorella Isabel, and Jayme CheeseSlice on the 1s and 2. That's it. Truth Time is out. We got a bunch of stories in the can. We'll do it on Monday. We'll see you there. Truth out.
I made Gestapo tactics.